Hey guys, what is up? It's your boy Vajalarazzi here, and today I wanted to make a video where I discuss the differences between the Bitcoin pairings and the dollar pairings when it comes to charting and analysis. I've noticed that a lot of people are confused and torn between which side to choose between, whether it's USD pairs or whether it's Bitcoin pairs, and in this video I hope to kind of give you my perspective, why I personally use dollar pairs more than the Bitcoin pairs. Keep in mind that there are going to be some similarities and differences between both. There's going to be some pros and cons between using both, but in this video I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a short update on why I personally like the dollar pairs a little bit more. Now, taking a look at the chart here, we have a graph of Ethereum. Now, this is a 2-day candlestick chart, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys the overall difference between the Bitcoin pairs and the dollar pairs. Taking a look at the dollar pairs, you can see that prices really go through these insanely hyped periods of time where prices increase exponentially. Okay? Now, this is actually because of the fact that a dollar is relatively the same value at all periods of time. Whereas the Bitcoin chart, the reason why the Bitcoin chart looks a little bit different than the dollar chart and it doesn't go quite as high as these dollar charts is because of the fact they have to be outperforming the dollar. Now, the dollar relatively stays the same value, whereas these cryptocurrencies go up in value really quickly because there's tons of hype inside of this market. Now, it's not very hard for these altcoins to actually outperform the dollar, and so that's why we have these strong periods of insanely expansive bull growth. Taking a look at the Bitcoin chart, it's very obvious to tell that you don't get quite the same upward trajectory growth as you do with the dollar chart. And this is because it's harder for these altcoins to actually outperform Bitcoin. So the degree of trend in these market cycles isn't quite as steep as the dollar pair. Remember guys, Bitcoin is the leading cryptocurrency and it goes up in value quite drastically. If you look at the linear trend of Bitcoin, it just always goes up. So it makes sense that for these altcoins to outperform Bitcoin, they have to be doing exceptionally well in the market, which is why you don't quite see the same degree of trend and growth that you do from the dollar chart. You see these fractal patterns getting played out far more frequently with the dollar or with the Bitcoin pair. Now, what I mean by that is I'm actually going to come through here and draw some patterns that I see comparing this market cycle of Ethereum on the Bitcoin pair to this market cycle. Taking a look at the Bitcoin pair, I'm going to point out a few patterns that I've noticed. We have the first market cycle followed by an accumulation period. After the accumulation period, we go into a rally. This rally, once retraced, we make our first top, and then about midway through the market cycle, we find a bottom, and then we bounce, rally, and then we create this double top scenario, and then prices ABC retrace, and then we accumulate, and then we fall back into this rounding or accumulation area. Now, based off the last one, when we come to this accumulation area, we are followed by a huge rally. We get this same sort of rally, and then we make a top. This top is followed by a retrace to about half the value of its market cycle, and then we get another expansive move, and then this creates this little double top that we saw over here. Same sort of pattern, it just changes a little bit as the market cycle matures. And now we're kind of sitting in this area. It's hard to say exactly what it's going to do because keep in mind with these Bitcoin pairs, they create these market cycle fractals. However, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be the same exact thing and same pattern every time around. So we just kind of have to watch and see how this market cycle develops over time. But this is kind of what I've noticed between the Bitcoin pairs and the dollar pairs. You'll often see these big fractal market cycles which kind of repeat the same patterns. They're almost identical, but they're not quite in some ways. Sometimes they vary a little bit. But overall, the patterns are a little bit... Overall, with the Bitcoin chart, you see these market cycle fractals more than anything. Compared to with the dollar chart, you see more of just linear growth and steeper degree of trends followed by huge hype cycles. Now, if we compare the period of time between about June to November, and then after this breakout of the ascending triangle, we compare to about November to January, I want to show you guys the differences in chart. That same period of time on the dollar chart is going to be equal to about this length of time on the Bitcoin chart. Now, as you can see on the Bitcoin chart, we've only gone down in value compared to as the dollar chart. We maintained value and actually maintained the uptrend before we broke higher and saw all-time highs up to about $1,400. During the same time, we retraced, and then during the fifth wave, we only get this very short-lived double top. This right here is the same as this big expansive move on the dollar chart. Now, I bring this up just to kind of show you guys the differences between the dollar and the Bitcoin chart. I'm not going to get too far into it. I personally like to use the dollar chart because of the fact it's a little bit more accurate. You get to miss out on some of this volatile crap that happens on the Bitcoin chart, whereas on the dollar chart, it's easier to find the bottoms. You can read Elliott waves more clearer, and overall, just the charting accuracy, I think, is far more reliable than the Bitcoin pair. These fractals get really symmetrical to one another to where it kind of helps you to identify where we're at in the story. Oftentimes you get these fractal market cycles that portray, and then they just exponentially get bigger and bigger. So there are pros and cons to using the Bitcoin chart, but for the sake of having very detailed technical analysis and you're trying to avoid any mishaps with volatility, the dollar pair is going to be the one to use. Now, lastly, before I end this video, there's one more point that I wanted to make, and that is when people are calculating how much money and their profits that they're making inside of crypto, they're not necessarily counting their Bitcoin amount. You don't look at their value in Bitcoins, you're looking at their value in US dollar. How much am I holding? How much is my portfolio worth pegged to the dollar? For the average person in the market, they're only looking at how much they're holding worth of US dollars. So that's why I think that it's most important to use the dollar pair. Whenever I keep track of my profits, I'm looking at them compared to the dollar. I'm not looking to see how much I made in Bitcoin because of the fact that the Bitcoin amount changes all of the time. It's so volatile that it's hard to keep track on exactly how much Bitcoin you're making because you're going to have to revert back to Google and just have to Google your amount every time you take profits. So that's why I like to use the dollar pair. It's a little bit more accurate. I always know how much my profits are because they're not going to change on me as Bitcoin goes up or down. The dollar is always going to stay a dollar, so it's easy for me to keep track of what I'm gaining and losing and just where my overall account balance stands. So this was my video I had for you guys. I wanted to keep it short and simple. Some of you new guys getting into trading always have this question as to which pair should I use. I personally like to use the dollar pair for my overall charting analysis. It doesn't mean that I'm totally against using the Bitcoin pair. It's just that I found that the dollar pair is a little bit more accurate, it's a little bit more stable, and you're going to miss out on some of those more volatile days. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, always remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more updates in the future. I'll see you guys in the next one.